farming is done based on natural principles. There's things called agroecology, permaculture, ways that actually tie in to natural systems. And if you start growing food in this fashion, not only do you grow healthier food, you're going to start growing healthier people. And when people are healthier, they're not spending all their money on health care. And we stop this insane amount of spending on bad agricultural practices and subsidizing bad agricultural practices. And we get more into what grows together. How do we grow perennial crops? How do we grow animals so that the cycle of growing animals in our cropland are always making the soil better? So all farming systems are regenerative, and we get rid of the concept of sustainability and we really start looking at regeneration, because that's really where the future is. And when you start doing regenerative practices, you get more. Everything that you do, you increase not only yields but biodiversity, which is biosecurity. Biodiversity, when you start bringing in every species that you bring in 18 more. You might not want all the ones that you're getting, but all that diversity starts to do things. People worry about pest pressures. Well, the more pests you have, the more food they are for something else, and that thing's going to be eating the pests, and it's going to be producing manure of some type. Everything eats and poops. We need to improve our poop loop. So if the future is really productive, we're going to start having these cycles, and it's going to blow people's minds because they won't imagine how abundant it is. If you go back just 200 years in California history and you saw how abundant that valley, the San Joaquin Valley, which used to be the most fertile valley in the world, if you saw how abundant that was, people can't, they don't even have a concept of it unless they read about it, and they start to see fish, salmon, in rivers, all the rivers in California, all the rivers north of California, loaded with salmon. All that's working again. Those nutrient cycles of salmon swimming upstream and dying and being food and then eaten and pooped out. That's a fertilizer cycle that doesn't happen anymore. In the future, we're going to have all that back because we're going to be wise with our water. We're going to restore our soils. It's going to soak into the ground instead of run off and leave to the oceans right away. We've got to start sequestering, and that's the future. Is the soil's healthy, it's sequestering carbon. And we've been...
What does sequestering carbon mean?
It means long-term storage. So you've got carbon up in the atmosphere. We all know global warming is too much carbon in the atmosphere. Sequestering means taking it out of the atmosphere and putting it back into the soil from whence it came. It's not just burning fossil fuels.
And the way that you do that, from what I understood, is regenerative soil practices, which actually takes carbon out of the atmosphere and puts it into the soil.
Right. So if you look at a plant grows, and everybody thinks that it's very short-sighted. A plant takes up water and nutrients from the soil. That's what most people think of. What they don't realize is that the photosynthetic process, where sun is shining on chlorophyll and doing photosynthesis, that part of the energy of the plant is spent putting carbohydrates into the soil in the form of simple sugars. And those simple sugars, the reason it does that is to feed biology in the soil. It's actually feeding fungi and bacteria and other microorganisms in the soil. And why would it do that? Why would it take that precious energy and not be growing more plant, more root, and actually be putting it into the soil? It's doing that because it wants the nutrients that biology can provide it. So by it creating this healthy environment and feeding these other creatures that aren't related to it, it actually gets nutrients in exchange. And the best example of that's mycorrhizal fungi. 90% of plants and trees are mycorrhizal, meaning they have a relationship with mushrooms. Now that sounds really far-fetched, but mushrooms were here way before plants and animals.
What?
It's true. And
I didn't
if
know this.
you don't know anything about mushrooms, read Paul Stamets' book, Mycelium Running, or see his new movie that's going to be coming out called Fantastic Fungi. That's going to be awesome. And mushrooms are really, really important in our ecosystem. And just in case you were wondering, I have an Amanita muscaria on my shirt that I got at the Telluride Mushroom Festival. It's fungi are related to everything. So part of our DNA is fungi DNA, and it helps keep us safe. It helps our immune system. And also all plants have relationships with fungi in their DNA. So all the fungi that live on the planet, they're getting destroyed by our agricultural practices.
So we have to save the planet by creating regenerative soil practices. How do we make regenerative soil practices popular and make it something that we understand?
It's easy. We have to start teaching. So part of this future is education. Education is key. And the reason I get so fired up about the future is that we have this thing called the internet, and the internet is going to save us because good ideas can be disseminated at the speed of light around the world. So when someone comes up with a better grazing practice and finds out, hey, this way of grazing my cattle sequesters more carbon than this other method, people are going to be able to learn rapidly and go, oh my gosh, we need to start implementing some of these practices. So grazing lands are usually lands that you can't grow crops on, but that's 80% of our agricultural land is grazing, and we turn it into deserts by bad grazing management, and people don't understand that with good grazing management, they can reverse the cycle of desertification, and that's been proven by Alan Savory. It's being actually scientifically proven right now by a Dr. Richard Teague, and his research is going to be awesome. And you can watch another video called Soil Carbon Cowboys by Peter Bick, he's also doing the research at ASU. It's amazing stuff, and this information is getting out there. More and more people are getting turned on to this, and agroecology and all the regenerative practices that are out there. And people are getting it because they're realizing, oh my God, they've seen their soil deteriorate. They've seen it wash away in a rain, and they've seen a neighbor's whose soil didn't go anywhere in the same rainstorm. And they're starting to get it. Like, oh my God, there might be something to this weird organic idea or whatever, but this is way beyond organic. It's going to be regenerative, and it's huge. It's going to be huge, and everyone is going to be doing it, and you're going to buy food. People are going to get fired up because the food tastes better, and they get healthier, and it's one of those things that snowballs. When people start eating right, all of a sudden
everything's
better. Clicks. Go to kisstheground.org.
Okay.
Kisstheground.org is a great organization. I'm one of their volunteers, and they're amazing. And our mission, that's one of our missions, is to inspire people to go, oh my God, I can actually do something. Because everyone's powerless right now, right? It's like, oh, I can't do it. Global
we can create the future.
But everybody can create the future, and all you have to do is put out what you want to see. And I want to see a clean, healthy world filled with, forget fossil fuels. Those things are going by the wayside. We're going to have new, clean alternatives. Wind and solar are passing the point where it's cheaper now. In the next 3 years, forget what exact day, somewhere in the next 3 years, in some countries it's already happened, solar energy is cheaper than fossil fuels.
Yes.
So we have no concept. As soon as you go over cross that threshold by 0.1 of a cent, done. It's like, takes off. And we're already seeing it.
I love it.
Solar, wind.
And tell us again what your full name is.
Don Smith.
Don Smith, thank you for predicting the future with us and painting a picture for us to walk into. It was a beautiful experience.
My pleasure. The future is abundant. That's what I see. Abundant. Lots of it.
Yeah.